The other day I found an app that lets you make shaders for your phone on your phone. Pretty sick, and I did what everyone else would do with the app. But what is a shader, you might be thinking? Simply put, it's what makes a game pretty. For example, the water in Sea of Thieves, the toon shading in Wind Waker, and the pixelation on Dead Cells. The code runs in parallel on the GPU for every pixel on your phone, so it's very fast. But you can't have pixels communicate with each other. No! And you can't have variables that persist throughout the execution of the program easily. There is technically a way which I'll get into later, but the point is that it's not suited for making games, and it would be very difficult and annoying to do so. A pretty neat feature of the app is that you can get information of the phone pretty easily. For example, you can get information on the touch position, the orientation, the pressure. With that being said, let's take a look at some of the first few shaders I made. There's this one which pixelates what the camera sees into triangles, and there's this one which creates outlines from the camera's view. It also has an option to have this echolocation type effect. This final one gives a pixel art effect to the camera by dithering different brightness levels differently. It's definitely my favorite, even though it was the easiest to code. There's this minigame in Minecraft that I loved playing as a kid called Dropper, where you fall and try and dodge obstacles to not take fall damage and die. I want to recreate that, but you control the player using your phone's orientation. To do this though, we first need to figure out how to display 3D objects. This isn't a game engine after all, so we can't just call some function to spawn a cube. We gotta use So after implementing sphere-assisted ray marching, You thought I was gonna explain it? You can watch this if you're interested. Anyway, so I made a few test shaders rendering 3D objects. Something pretty interesting about this approach of rendering is that you can make metaballs pretty easily. And you can also make infinite patterns like so pretty easily. You can even make geometry from noise functions, which can be pretty cool. In this example, a second ray march using the noise function is used if the ray hits an object. Since the shapes are not defined by vertices, you can get a lot of detail even if you zoom in. Now that we got 3D objects, we have to be able to move it closer to the player. This might seem as simple as adding a certain value to the object position, but it's not moving. That's because variables reset every frame. As far as I know, which isn't very far, the only way to have a persistent variable is to make use of the back buffer, which holds the color of each pixel in the previous frame. So you first choose a pixel to sacrifice, and at the end of the program you set the pixel's color according to the variable's value. Then in the next frame you read the pixel's value in the previous frame to get the variable's value. Since the color is a vector 4 from 0 to 1, you also need to compress the variable to be represented by a value from 0 to 1, then decode it in the next frame. Oh, and you also have to consider precision errors. So you can't just say divide by a massive number, then set the new vector as the pixel's color, and finally multiply the same number the next frame. Doing so will change your variable unexpectedly. And with that, the obstacles are moving, and once they reach the player, they teleport back and change shape to one of the following. To know if the player collided with the obstacle, I just check if the player is within a certain XY position when the wall reaches the player. So far the game looks boring, so I improved the look of the game by first giving toon shading to the objects, then pixelating and adding scan lines. Now for some finishing touches, I added the score and a little effect whenever you get a point. I also added my role model, my one and only Oshikonoko, Denjiro sensei. Now whenever you die, the screen shakes and there's a nice Denjiro jump scare. After hours and hours of headbanging bugs and error messages that gets clipped off, Here's the finished game. Huh. Why is it so... Well, turns out even just rendering 12 cuboids will make your phone run super slow, and I've been lying to you this whole time. I actually sped up the gameplay like 10 times to make it look like it was running at over 60 FPS. This was also originally running at like 6 FPS, but I sped it up to make it look smooth. There are definitely many ways I could have optimized the game. For example, these walls are all made up of 4 cuboids when some of them can be made by just 2. Wait, actually, all of them can be made by just 2 now that I think about it. Well, it's too late now because I decided to change the rendering system to now use ray casting. Instead of the rays taking steps through the scene, it now goes straight to the surface. This improved the performance significantly even though the obstacles are still rendered using 4 cuboids because I'm too lazy to fix it. Now it runs at around 40 FPS.
Okay, let's go!
If you want to play it for some reason, you'll need to copy paste the code in the description into the app. You won't see the Denjiro jump scare though unless you set the texture here. You can play around with some of the settings like the FOV for fun. Also, for some side notes, you should turn off auto rotate when you play, and the difficulty of the game depends on your FPS. I know that sounds really stupid, and I probably maybe could have fixed it.
It's just, normally when making games you'll multiply the speed by the time between the last frame and the current frame to combat this, but there's no easy way to get that information using this app, so I just left it that way.
So basically you were just too...
Yeah, I was just too lazy to fix it. If it is too difficult though, you can change the speed by tweaking this variable. And with that, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're ever bored on the bus or ferry and you don't mind not having error highlighting or autocomplete or any of these, then give it a shot, I guess.
Goodbye guys, subscribe.